is the regular meeting of the Darien County Park and Recreation Commission, September 17th. It is 7:35, calling the meeting to order. Okay, we have two sets of minutes to start with. The first is our last meeting, which was July 16th, which seems like a whole life. Everybody have read summer since then? Has everybody reviewed them and have any comments or changes? Seeing none, these were done by Tamara, which you have watched the TV. All right, I'm just not saying that. The Darien TV, or TV Darien TV recordings. Okay, so can I have a motion to approve? Amy, Jim second, all in favor? Next, my printer is really wrong today, so I just don't know
Lord, I have it on my laptop if you need.
No, I've got it printed, it just, I left outside and did those stupid things, but anyway. Next are the minutes from our Parks tour on September 7th, which were done by yours truly, since TV 79 was not able to record us. So I am open to any and all comments or proposed changes. Anybody? No. Okay, everybody's happy? Okay, then a motion to approve. Cindy, Mary Louise second, all in favor? Okay, good. Okay, next on the agenda is public comment. Do I have anybody?
I have some comments.
Yes, ma'am. Would you please stand, make sure TV 79 can get you?
Yeah, my name is...
Wait till you just get forward. Okay. Okay. And your
My name
name
is Kelly Cole.
and your address.
And I live at 62 Cedric Avenue.
Thank you.
And I was kind of amazed at what I heard about things that were happening here at 2 Point Beach because I didn't know how come nobody knew about it, but maybe one or two people have called me on it. I had a petition at one time with 1,500 signatures on it so that we didn't have to put berms and stuff on the beach. And now I've heard that we're taking away 20 parking spaces and we're adding 18 feet of beach. Is that happening? I mean, how do we know? Who should the public be aware?
I believe the public is aware it's from many hearings, but anyway, this is public comment, so you can speak.
Right.
It's not necessarily a dialogue.
Okay, so I just wanted to be on public record that I don't believe a lot of people in town are aware. I can tell you that I was at the beach all summer and no one ever talked about it then. Having 28 spaces taken away, to me, seems absolutely absurd when people are fighting for spaces now. Adding sand to a beach that I just went there tonight, and I don't know if you've been there on the tent, and I know you've seen the pictures, but it was underwater on the tent. And it happens 12 times a year. And we're going to spend $8 to $9 million on a beach where we just spent $85 million on Great Island, which is a whole beach. It's something that we should consider. I'm not sure where all the money's coming from. To me, it's absurd that we as a town are going to spend $9 million, and now, and by the way, we just did Pier 2 Point Road, it's beautiful, but we're going to tilt the parking lot so the water runs to it. Is that also on there? Because I've heard that also.
That's not correct.
But we're not doing any of the beach to the bathhouse? We're not going to correct anything in the bathhouse? I mean, I think our priorities are a little crazy here, and I also think that you should really consider the people who live on that street. Have any of you talked to them? Because I haven't seen any of that either. You know, it's a beach that has gone underwater 5, 6, 7 times a year. $9 million is a lot of money. And I think the people in Darien should really be aware. I feel like this is really done under the table. Because I can tell you, before COVID, you weren't doing it. It was not going to be done. And all of a sudden now, I get 3 phone calls and it's going to be done. I'm disappointed and I'm kind of ashamed. And I'm just going to leave you this. You have a mission statement. It says to adjust and expand both the recreational programs, the parklands to meet the recreational requirements of all residents in a cost-effective manner. $9 million. I'm not sure it's cost.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Anybody else? No other public people? Our RTM representatives?
I have one public comment.
Okay. You know the drill.
Susan Marks, 39 Fairfield Avenue. I am on the RTM, but I'm really speaking as Susan Marks. I have been following the process. I have been watching all the meetings for the two beaches projects specifically. And I just want to encourage all of you to reach out to any Board of Finance or RTM members that you know, because there's quite a bit of discussion going on, and obviously you all support these two projects, and it would be great for the Board of Finance and for the RTM members to hear. I know there are emails going out left and right, a lot of misinformation. You guys are in the know. So I guess I'm asking a favor if you can help disseminate the correct information and have conversations and encourage the Board of Finance and the RTM to vote for both projects.
Thank you, Susan.
I'm not speaking on behalf of the RTM for that.
Patty?
No, I'm just
You're good?
attending
Okay.
as the vice chair of Parks and Rec.
No, I know that, but I'm just giving
Yeah.
you an opportunity.
Because Adele is away.
Yes,
So,
I am.
yep.
I'm just giving you that opportunity. Okay. Then no more public comment. We will go to really our primary item tonight, which is a review and discussion and follow up to our the parks tour, and then all of the individual assessments everybody did by going out and walking the parks independently. So thank you everybody for going through that annual exercise, and a particular thank you to Terry, who does our Google form, who assembles it, collates it, badgers you all to get it in on time, et cetera, et cetera. So anyway, we will go through that. This is where my printing is like super wonky. I might have two sets if you want one, because my printer just, I don't know what it is. I think this is it, yeah. I think this is it. I might even have a third set. I don't know, I just. I really don't know what happened here. All of a sudden I had this wad coming out of my printer. So, anyway, so Terry, do you want to run us through, just because I'd love a break from
You want,
all this talking?
you want the fives? I've got a 5-minute version or longer,
Well, why don't you just kind of, run us through? It would be awesome.
So
and then
everybody,
just
I think
get the
everybody has
conversation going.
I think everybody has a copy of the deck in their packet. I followed a very similar format to last year, which kind of helps because you can kind of look at where we either feel like we make progress or the kind of mood we were in on that particular day.
It was rainy, just saying.
Yeah. So, but at any of the day, I don't need to read the slides to you, but at the end of the day, the purpose of the is to assess in a variety of dimensions as applicable to parks in terms of are they up to the standard of care for parks and facilities to a quote high and uniform standard. And the criteria are 3, which is it meets. We sort of played around a couple years ago with the idea of exceeds, but how do you measure exceeds? So we just go with meets or exceeds as 1, slightly below or significantly below. Those are the 3 ratings on that. And by the way, really great job by everybody, not only completing it, keeping the free form comments like succinct and on task. Like last year was a lot longer and kind of a little bit all over the place. We really stayed in the guardrails. And then the biggest thing was I did not have a lot of time to turn this around. This year I gave myself like a month. Last year, this one we had a couple days, and I was still later than I promised to Lori. And at any rate, thank you so much for doing that on a timely basis. For me, the money slide really is slide 3, which is kind of the giving you what the average ratings are. In terms of the heat map, this is kind of my create. So all the data is here. None of the data is messed with. But what I flagged anything as getting an average rating of below 2.5 as sort of notable. So that says on the 1, 2, 3 scale, if any, which means these are the things that are most significantly below standard as the group of 10 of us that responded thought. And the thing that's kind of interesting this year is, heavy yellow on both beaches. So that's kind of the thing that jumps off the page at me. I'd ask if you haven't had a chance to look at it, maybe take just a few minutes now, but like I said, and if you guys can't see it, if you have the packet, but you know, the other thing that's notable, extraordinary high marks for Baker. I mean, like everything is like within 0.2 or so of 3. That's probably the highest average. Like I said, you know, and it would make sense. We spent the most time at the beaches on the tour, the most time talking. It's clear that kind of makes sense that those would have that. Selleck's had fewer reviewers, so the averages might be a little bit higher, but that came in quite high as well. Stony Brook. And then the other thing that's remarkable, I didn't show year-over-year change, but Tilly Pond Park ratings were much, much higher this year, and I think you guys all would agree with me, it looked way better this year than it looked last year. And part of that was the time of year, the drawdown of the pond, all those trees that we lost. It just really looked a lot better, and I recall leaning over, I know Jen's not here to talk about it, but I leaned over to her, I'm like, is this just a time of year thing, or did we really do this great a job in this past year? And she said it's a little of both. She said we really took some TLC to these trees, and you know, with the water level back up and the aerators working, the whole thing just looks a lot better. And I think you guys would agree. Before I move on, any comments as to the ratings or questions? But to me, this is kind of for those of us that are data driven, this is sort of the money slide for.
It would be interesting to see this year over year, because this is the second year you've done this, right?
Yeah, and followed the same.
Yeah, so.
You know, it's a little tricky because we tour different parks, you know, but it's a good.
Once you get a critical mass, like 5 years or something, to see the difference between year 1 and 5. And I think my comments pertain to the beaches. It'll be great to go back a year from now and look to see the changes that have been implemented. Yeah.
And Baker has been really a complete makeover versus last year. Even the ball field with the backstops, they're all new. The playground looks fantastic. So everything about Baker looks like night and day versus what it was a year ago.
Yeah, I wanted to agree on that comment and also point out, Janet, yet again, thank you very much for all your hard work on that. You were spearheaded a big project and you brought it home, and we're all really grateful
It's
for
just,
your effort.
I drive by there today, so it's almost every day, at 5 o'clock or so. It was packed. Really, you know, a lot of great
Neighbors are happy too.
Yeah, just
Especially the women who, you know, contributed to the commission, the working group.
Yeah, really, just so great.
That's awesome, well done.
Yeah, very, very well done. I mean, what's interesting, what stands out, and a lot of these with the scores, and we'll be talking about this in various formats, is sort of the signage and the accessibility. I think the signage is something, I think, as we get through our discussions tonight and others, maybe something that we want to start putting some more focus on. Signage is a tricky one. You know, you want to post your rules, the other hand, do wayfinding. Feels a little haphazard, but I think that may be something that as a commission we want to put some effort around. And then the accessibility, I guess John will touch on that, you know, later on when I make my comments, or you can chime in, or do you want to talk about it now?
Well, does the survey allow for a collection of comments? So in other words, why did I rate this a 2?
Yeah.
Was there-
Yes and no. People can freeform comments, but you don't say, I rated this a 2 because, unless you added it in your freeform.
Yeah, and then the other problem for people like me, like I'm reasonably new, so like I have no really objective way to say whether this meets standards. It's basically me going around saying, I think this meets standards or it doesn't. Like, there's
Well,
nothing.
actually, we've got the list of the standards.
Right,
and
but when I'm
so-
doing the survey, that's not top of mind. I'm just like, well,
Okay.
you know what I mean? Like
Like a point of reference.
Yeah.
it's like if,
Yeah.
20 years ago, I looked
Right,
like X.
right, and the difference.
Fair
yeah.
enough.
I'm surprised
Makes
that,
sense.
we all grade
a
different.
little surprised that the landscape areas at Third Street came in below average, because we did put a lot of money into that, and I thought they looked really good along the
Yeah, I
road.
thought that too.
And the
Yeah.
trees, we put in on the beach as well. But anyway, it came in a little below average, but
A little below. And it could be, I mean, it's all of your ratings that people felt along the road is good, but other than that, it's just a big parking lot with very little.
well, you can
greenery,
look at
so,
it that way, yeah.
Yeah. so.
Back to Baker real quickly. Yeah, I was surprised by the accessibility because I feel like we've improved it by so much. The fact that it's the playground is accessible now
Yeah, no, I think
from the parking lot.
the comments at the tour were
Yeah.
related to getting down to the fields,
Yeah,
Getting what?
down to the
To the
baseball field.
fields.
Yeah,
yeah.
Okay.
so I think that's where that comes from. So, multi-use parks are kind of hard to,
Yeah, hard, and I don't know, maybe we should just touch on it right now, is, I believe I've mentioned this in the past, but the ADA audit that has been done completely about an outside firm, compliance audit for the entire town, so it covers all town facilities, so it's all of the parks and all of the town properties, is very near completion. John, I believe it's going to be delivered to the selectmen.
Yeah, there's a company called WT
Monday.
Group that was hired by Westcott for all the towns that are in that council of governments. And the reason they did that was to provide all these towns with an ADA assessment of where they are. And that's important because it really provides the basis for a roadmap, if you will, to correct all that. The report is going to be presented to the Board of Selectmen on the 29th. It's in draft form right now. The only part of it that I've seen happens to pertain to Weed Beach. The rest of it we've not seen yet. But in that draft report, it's 120 pages long. There are 165 separate items that were noted. And some of that is very small, so it can be a door that's an inch narrower than it needs to be, or a ramp that's got a pitch that's not quite right, or there's a step or a lip or some kind of problem. But all of those things are very, very carefully codified in ADA regulations. And they're very specific about, look, if you're going to build an ADA compliance facility, it has to conform to these measurements. And in many cases, and it was because of the way these buildings were built, they are not in compliance in literally almost countless ways. And there's all kinds of small things that are just off a little bit, not the least of which is the bathroom in this building. It's just off. And so if you're going to come in and look at it, unfortunately, it's a binary thing. Either it's in compliance or it's not. So what we're going to need to do as a town, as I mentioned, some meeting I was at, I can't remember.
And you and I talked about it the other day.
We talked about it the other day. So what we're going to need to do as a town is take the totality of all these observations and first answer the question, what is our risk tolerance, right? So a zero risk tolerance would be every single identified item in every draft, every report for the parts of the town that covers, we would remediate all of those. I think that's not realistic because some of them are, something's off by literally half an inch. And the question is do we address that? Probably not. But we are going to have to come in and have a thoughtful view as to what our risk tolerance for that stuff is. And once we have that, then we need to rank all of these observations or observed deficiencies against that risk tolerance profile and say, okay, the ones above this, we're going to need to stratify and attack the ones that are the biggest problems first and kind of march through them. It does suggest that at some level, a lot of the ADA compliant aspects of Weed Beach are going to have to be looked at. I don't know how we're going to prioritize all that, and we don't need to take action right now, but it is a long list and you will have an opportunity to see it. Yeah.
Does the ADA require remediation or only when you do the renovation you have to remediate?
Well, like a lot of legislation, the way this stuff gets enforced is complaint driven. So if somebody comes in and says, I went to this park in New Jersey somewhere and this facility was not ADA compliant and I had trouble. Okay, so what they'll do is they'll file a complaint with the government at state or federal level and say, these facilities are not compliant. And that turns into a problem because then the regulatory agency can come after the entity that's not in compliance. And that can be a municipality, it can be a private business, all of that. And so because of that, that's why you have to go through and kind of rank order all of the deficiencies that were noted against a risk profile that says, all right, these items were at greatest risk of either somebody getting hurt because it's not what it needs to be, or someone could file a complaint against that, and someone could say, yeah, you really got to fix that, we're going to come after you, versus not. And so we really need some experience-based help in sorting through that to determine what that profile is.
But if we were like renovating this building, then we have to be ADA compliant, right? I mean, I guess I'm just trying to understand.
For sure.
What's grandfather?
Yeah, that's the better,
sure.
yes,
Right.
correct, grandfather.
And there are thresholds for at what point you have to do that. So I think it's 20% of the value of the building. So if your renovations exceed that number,
Okay.
then you have to make all of this ADA compliant.
Thanks.
So that's why, for example, it's hard to renovate certain buildings because if you do, it triggers a massive expense because that building doesn't lend itself to these compliance factors. So, or compliance requirements. Anyway, lots more to come on all this. The main message is not to worry, because one of the things about having an ADA compliance audit in place and a plan of action that you're working on is that the regulatory agencies will give municipalities an extended period of time to address those things. So typically, for your top items, that can be over the course of 3 to 5 years. For the lower priority items, that can go beyond that. So, and during that time, we're not going to face a lot of regulatory scrutiny because we're both working on it. So we've got some time to address this and to do it in a responsible and cost-effective manner.
I do want to make one note for the record on the way we rated this and the different items that were measured against. We purposely, when we developed this, used the word accessibility way back in the day, and I think it's when I was working with Cara Bonesack, who did this form before Terry joined us, realized that we should not rate against ADA compliance because none of us are qualified to make that assessment. So the exercise here is using the knowledge that we do have of requirements and just kind of looking at it as you walk around. So for instance, when I went over to the front town hall field, I looked at it and I said, well, gee, to get down to the field, there's this grass hill that you have to get down. So that really isn't accessible. So, but it's not for all of us to, you know, as John said, do the measurements that these subject matter experts went in and did. So what more, you know, I want to put record, it's us as lay people looking at it with a lens of, you know, how can our users get around the park, and are we spotting things that we know are challenging? And Janet, I agree. I believe this commission has been very focused on this as we've done the playgrounds to make sure that all of the playgrounds have the accessible elements, you know, requesting extra funds to do the sidewalk at Baker. So I do believe we've kept that, you know, top of mind. But, you know, a lot of the conditions in the parks are pre-existing and have been this way for many times, so it's going forward. So, but I just want to make it very clear that none of us were trying to be professionals here and give a true ADA compliance assessment.
I would delete this category going forward, not to put too fine a point on it, but it's unhelpful for the officials responsible for our parks to be making expertise-free claims about accessibility. Not to denigrate anybody, even I am not qualified to assess all that. That's why we have professionals to do that.
Okay, Terry, go.
John mentioned comments. So the way I looked, we've summarized comments, but I also didn't sort of, like when I look at the comments that everybody submits, I sort of summarize them for purposes of the deck. So the ones that got most frequently mentioned, I sort of highlighted those. But then there's a separate document that has every single comment that was made. So nothing ended up on the cutting room floor. I don't want anybody to feel like their comments were disregarded in any way. So there's, like I said, there's 2 documents. There's like, here are the ones that were most mentioned, which are what's in the PowerPoint deck. But then there's a separate document that is every single one. And you'll also notice there was no editing, including a typo or 2. Like I didn't want anybody, you know, I didn't mess with any of it. So moving on to slide 4, most important priorities followed exactly our talk track from the day. We had a lively discussion about Cherry Lawn, which was jumped off the page at 7 people. Well, at the end of the cert, you have a free form text, but then you also have the opportunity to say, here are my top 3. Out of 10 responses, 7 appeared for dealing with Cherry Lawn in 2 forms, like parking as well as offloading use to other places to the extent that we can. Pear Tree Point and Weed Beach were kind of the big hitters in terms of top priorities. Moving on, and I'll kind of breeze through this and you can read this, but there really aren't at least anything that was a surprise to me. Pear Tree Point Beach, support the current plan for improvement, bathrooms and additional toilets if possible. There were a few additional trees comments, and then signing and enforcement for dogs, which are not, I believe, are not permitted at Pear Tree.
Never.
Yeah, and idling cars. Weed Beach also fixed short lane as well as broadly the look over on that side of the beach. Buildings and columns could use some paint. The entrance area in the gatehouse could use a little refresh. And then on the topic of pickleball, to the extent that we can, understand how much that new surface is getting used, as well as kind of there were some, Jen went pretty deeply into the process of laying it down, putting it back up, and putting it back down again. There were definitely some questions on, is year 2 and year 3 and year 4 going to be as good as year 1? And that's something that we should make a note of. Is one of the things that came back in the comments. Cherry lawn, traffic, and can we load balance activities potentially to help with traffic? Condition of the soccer field from last year to this year vastly improved. And the usual invasives and pond, although oddly, invasives and pond didn't seem to come back. If you looked at Cherry Lawn's ratings, they were very, very high across the board. They were, well, we spent a lot of time talking about invasives and pond last year. I think we kind of ran out of time this year,
And we're also budgeted to dredge it, so.
Yeah, what's the timeline for
Jen's
dredging?
got to get the bid package out. I think she had to get it for summer camp this summer and everything else that's been going on in the office. And I just realized I didn't introduce Jim Cobb, and I feel like everybody knows Jim because he's such a long-term employee of the Parks Department, but thank you for filling in. He's filling in for Jen tonight, who's at the National Recreation and Parks Association Conference. Excuse me for not doing that, so.
No worries, thank you.
Well, also our invasive specialist was not on the tour on the 7th, so for Cherry Lawn. And I remember last year you were very instrumental in providing information and educating on the invasives regarding Cherry Lawn. So,
Well, there have been a number of improvements there. And I did mention, that was one I did go back to. There is significant invasives growing behind the gardens that probably should be mowed down. That was about as far as I could go.
okay.
All right, particularly before the mugwort seeds come out. Right, I mean, we know it all invades from the roots, but we should mow it down before the seeds.
Which is soon, right? Or-
Yeah, yeah.
I'm making notes, and I'm sure Jen will watch the video back.
Baker, just overwhelming positive feedback for the playground. A couple notes on accessibility down to the fields. Reports of cars being driven onto the field for certain soccer games, which that's astounding to me. But yeah, apparently something we need to.
Do you think that's happened more than once?
No, I thought it was just once. That's
Do we
all.
know? I don't know.
I heard of it once, but the neighbors who lived there said they'd seen it before. That's why I received the picture, which I showed you guys.
Okay. Thanks for clarifying.
No, but I just suggested in my comments, maybe a sign that says don't drive on them.
Something.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff to put on that side in the common sense department, but yeah. That's right.
Crazy.
I think they should just get a ticket. for not
Your
being-
car speed limit on Baker Field.
Yeah. But thanks for letting us know.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
Fence between the ball field and parking lot is looking a little run down, which I agree with. And then somebody put in remove old picnic tables. I don't even remember.
It's
That's
back on
back-
the Dubois Street side.
Yeah.
Or Relihan, whatever. There's an entrance at the back of the park.
There is?
Or the
Yeah.
walking path.
Yeah.
There's apparently
I thought that was
a
a-
table there.
There's an old table.
It was one of those times where I thought I had to comment in the wrong part, but yeah, okay. Tilly Pond, again, drastically improved over last year. Suggestion of consideration of a small playground or swing set. Reports of not infrequent fishing by some of our kids in town, and should we sign that or not? And then should we consider a sign for that or not?
Do we think the kids in town who are fishing would follow the instructions on no fishing?
As well as catch the nothing that's in there?
Yeah, as well as catch
As well as
nothing.
catching nothing? Yeah.
Yeah.
And their kids, do we care if they're
Yeah,
fishing?
we care.
Correct.
That's nice.
Can I ask that question? Thank you, John.
No charge.
I mean,
Yeah.
they used to fish across from Great Island where we're keeping the equipment for the dam that's being fixed now. So many kids used to bike
Yeah.
down there and fish. They don't really have their spot. They were fishing in Cherry Lawn last year and I had to say, go home and wash your hands because it was so toxic. You know, it was so green. And, but if the results say that, or per Jen's director's report, she says, Tilly Pond looks much cleaner because of the pellets that they work. So why can't we let our young kids fish?
We can't, it's just in our rules, otherwise we just change our rules and then we don't, it doesn't.
Right, the rules.
That's what I'm
right.
asking.
Yeah.
Okay.
Prescribed fishing in all the ponds, town ponds.
Yeah,
Yes, so, but maybe that's something we revisit, and then we've talked about that the rules need some work, and then we're gonna tackle that over the next few months, so.
a comment in here means that somebody like commented it doesn't necessarily
No,
mean
but
it's
it's a point, is if technically it's against the rules and we're seeing it happen, you're right, either we need to take some effort to prohibit or say, do we need to, I guess, we would also look to you and Jen and Sandy to guide us as to whether allowing it would cause any other issues. As our professionals, we want to know that, but, it sounds like it's something we could probably.
I don't know, in Darien, it's the ultimate Norman Rockwell scene, which is a kid
Yeah.
fishing off a bridge.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know.
Yeah. I just wanted to add that I did follow up with the garden club. I called 2 people. They're going to get back to me about the plantings in front of the stone gazebo. We call it
Gazebo, yeah.
So I just wanted
Thank
you
you.
to know that I followed up on that.
Thank you, because they planted it, it looked nice, but.
Is that what you mean by clean up the gazebo? I guess that's.
again,
I made one of the comments and it
Yeah.
was just like, the bird stuff up in there, that's.
Oh,
I
yeah,
think that's more it, that's right.
yeah, okay.
and then kind of some of the last where we had less feedback because they weren't on the tour, that people went on their own. McGuan, so there were a couple observations that the parking lot probably needs repaving. Anecdotally, the Darien Little League president, as well as Jen and Sandy, mentioned that to me as well. So that is probably one that we need to consider as it relates to the fields. I think Darien Little League is planning on putting a lot of money into those fields to pave out the lip, but that, again, that's unrelated. There were some comments, improve shade at the playground, if we can. Town Hall, baseball field, we just put that new backstop fence in, I think, last year. There's a gap below the fence in the ground, and that we just need to level off. There's just like a gap that's bigger than a baseball.
That's the field in the back.
The field in the back, yeah. Yeah, Collingham.
That's brand new.
Yeah, it's not a fence issue, it's a ground issue.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's, so we just need to fill it up. Potentially new pitcher's mound. There were some comments made about the manual scoreboard that's out there, potentially improving that. Accessibility of the bleachers and invasives. Lastly, limited comments on Sellex, but need to increase awareness on how to access. Woodland, increased signage for dogs on leashes, which I assume is related to unleashed dogs observations, but if whoever made that comment wants to clarify, they're welcome to.
I Woodland is one of mine. I mean, I walked through, saw dogs off leash, which is pretty usual there.
Yeah.
I think that when you pull in off of Middlesex, there's a couple of different signs that are there. And yes, there's one or two specifically on leashing, but there's other words around. I'm just saying if we made one that was even freaking cleaner, because I went over and actually asked somebody to leash their dog, and they said to me, I didn't see any sign when I came in. And I said, there's signs on both sides, but it doesn't really, I don't know how much more you can make it clear at that park. I also had the next one, which was the repaved entrance. I mean, if we've got the opportunity, it's falling apart there, and it's not a lot. It's like maybe 10 yards worth of blacktop that would need to be laid back down.
While we're on parks, I'm just curious, are we responsible for the wall behind the backstop of the ball field at Renshaw and Post Road? That stone wall? It's all falling apart. The rocks are all over the place. So they just need to be rebuilt or put together again.
Okay.
It just looks bad if you're driving by and you're looking at the signs there, Town Hall, and then the wall, this wall's all broken up.
Right on the corner.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know whose responsibility it was.
Okay. So you think that's us, not Public Works?
Yes.
That would be.
Woodland, some cleanup of some dead trees, freight, which is, park-ish, signage and or benches if we want it used as a park, which I think is a great comment. Potentially, comment was made, no parking. I'm not aware of anybody parking there other than like
School events.
like graduation and July 4th.
No, people
Did the
park
comment
there
mean
when
that
they're
there is
having-
no parking? I think,
Oh, right.
I
Okay,
think
that's
maybe
what
what
that-
I,
oh, got it.
there is no parking, so
Got
it's
it.
hard for people
Parking.
to use it as a park
Got it.
because there's nowhere.
Got it, not enforcing a no parking rule.
There was nowhere for me to
Create
park
parking
to
if
get
it's a
out
park.
and look at it, so
That
I
makes
just
sense.
looped
Okay,
around
got
about
it.
3 times and drove slowly because there's nowhere to park. Although I've heard that people park on it.
Got it.
They could park at the high school, right?
It's overflow.
Well, it's overflow, yeah, for graduation or.
And when people around there are having work done on their house or driveways paved, they
Trucks.
park there.
But
And
really-
trucks park there.
Then they're using our public park as a parking lot, which
Yeah.
they do all over town. I guess they do all
Well,
over town, but,
it's such a little piece of property,
Yeah.
there's not a lot we can do with it, it's just nice.
I mean, if you wanted to promote that, you'd have to put a fence with the boulders around
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
How would you feel about that?
Yeah.
So,
Stony Brook comments around signage, including parking, keeping an eye on garbage and in particular dog cleanup bags. And Diller also could use some cleanup, both trash and down trees, and the walking path could use some more grass. The last bit in the appendices is just basically a different view of the same numbers that are on slide 3, which are the averages, but these give you the number of votes of each dimension of each park and whether it was ranked 1, 2, 3. I spent a solid hour trying to, it would make so much more sense if this bar chart went 3, 2, 1 instead of 1, 2, 3, but I simply can't do it. So I need to find a different site to do this next year. If you guys will have me do this again, I have to find another
Oh, we'll have
bar
you do
chart
it.
program
Trust me.
that'll do it. But it does seem backwards that that you'd want the 3 to be on the left and the 1 to be on the right. But hey, I'm committed to continuous improvement. So that'll be an idea for next year. But again, we don't need to go through these. This is just the data that feeds the slide 3.
Exactly, we want more.
That's all I got.
Thank you, Terry. And then attached to the back, as he said, he appended like each and every comment. So John, if you've got a copy or gave you a copy, you can just read those at your leisure and will help feed into, the budget process and how we're thinking about next year and capital requests. So, with that, I'd like to open it up to discussion if there's particular topics that people would like to continue from our discussions on the tour. We'll be going into the budget process with Jen probably even starting next month.
Yeah, I would think so.
Yeah, so that's why she wanted us to get this done earlier, so these types of things they can be building into the budget, thinking about how much, if you hear lots of comments, John, about, gee, we need more trees here, trees there, do we need to think about upping the tree budget? Picnic tables, there was a comment even at F&B the other night about picnic tables, over here in the corner, and I came down and looked at them today, and they're not horrible, but they're older. And actually, 2 of the 3 grills have been replaced, and they're brand new, but just things like that, so we'll need to keep in mind. So yes, Ed,
I
go.
was just saying, I like the idea of the survey, and it's my second time doing
Yeah.
it, but I think one of the things that kind of misses, because when you think about like setting budget priorities, it's great for maintenance, like, okay, this is where we're seeing these things are missing, but like, we didn't talk, other than people putting comments about parking, like, that's not here
Yep.
as a discussion. And if you were to think about like spending, it's really like, well, how do we get more of this and more of that,
Right.
where then it's like a significant project, and not that John wants to deal with more projects in Parks and Rec Commission, but I don't know if we're thinking about as part of an annual process, there's a bit more of that kind of a discussion, as opposed to just, invasives here, fix the fence there, replace the picnic table.
If I'm seeing you raise your hand to work with Terry next year to make this even better, yay. Yeah, there's no pride of authorship here. We started this a few years ago, and, even when Terry picked it up last year, there were some things right away, and he's like, look, if this is the way you want to do it, I'm like, no, please, pick it apart, give me your fresh ideas and observations. So if we think we can continue to evolve and develop this, I think that's right. So please help us with that. And you know, this, when we started it, you know, you guys have been here for a while, it says our attempt was to support the budget and tie it back to, we're saying, okay, this is how we would like to see the parks maintained, but when we go to the selectmen and the Board of Finance, there's at least something about it that we say, look, we've observationally, we've gone out, we've looked, we know what we feel is appropriate and not, so the more we can fine tune that, you know.
Yeah, I would say, in your vigorous defense, I mean, let's look at a few things. This Short Lane Wheat Beach project, if that passes and that gets going, it's a dramatic improvement and expansion of our Wheat Beach property, the top-rated park property in town. And not just that, but everybody's pointing out, you were pointing out how Tilly Pond looks a lot better, or the park does. Once that dredging is finished, fantastic. The playgrounds, terrific, right? The parks have made immeasurable improvements just in the last 36 months, thanks to this commission. So,
And our crew.
To Ed's good point, though, you can't just rest on your laurels. You got to keep moving. But you all deserve a lot of credit for the improvements that we've seen to date, and should be proud of that.
But yeah, if you guys want to, you know, and don't even necessarily have to wait till next year. I mean, we're going to go through the budget process, and you know how we can, you know, we agreed that we would take a walk through and discussion about the master plan and kind of where we feel we are against it, maybe some areas to focus on, which we need to be doing in the next couple of meetings, again, to build into the budget, so maybe it ties in to that conversation as well, and where we want to go.
Yeah, if you were to pick the top three, rank the top three things in the Parks Master Plan that's not been done yet, start with that, what's up, what was in that list, and then what would it take to do those three things?
Right. So, yep, go. Please, yay. Yay, love it. You know, other things that people want to raise, and you know, as we move forward and go into the.
For me, just looking at the three top priorities that everybody noted, which have gotten a lot of discussion, you know, to me, I think, I mean, not at this meeting, but maybe at the next one, I think it'd be really helpful. So, number one, cherry lawn and parking, and just dealing with the amount of activity there was also the top item from last year. So, and, you know, that was one where we established that we needed a parking analysis to decide what problems we were solving, which we didn't get done last year. I think it would be a really good idea to have all of us thoroughly read the parking study of that proposal, of what it is and what it isn't, and come ready to have a discussion about that. And if that needs to be skinnied down or expanded, have it. But instead of asking what was in it and what isn't, and what do consultants often do, and dispense with all that stuff, and get the data we need to make good decisions at Cherry Lawn. I think, to me, that's the action we can take to start to make a little progress at Cherry Lawn. And to me, I think it's a very tight, narrow consulting engagement, and not a big, broad, blue sky thing. But at the end of the day, we're here like 3 years later, and we still can't even agree on what the peak problems are at Cherry Lawn. If people are going to continue to point out that we don't know that, we're not going to make progress. So to me, we don't even get in the batter's box in Cherry Lawn until we do that, and we should just do that as soon as possible. And then Pear Tree Point and Wheat Beach, I'm grateful to John for, like, anybody that's come to that last presentation. That thing is packaged about as well as it could be, and I tend to agree with Susan that we just need to filter out the noise of the line from the last 3 years and talk about how well packaged that is and has a bow on it, and filter out all the noise. And to me, I think that's a really simple action plan for our three top priorities that we can action in the next couple of weeks. So.
May I add to that? I'm in absolute agreement with that. Particularly with regard to Cherry Lawn, I'd encourage you to put that traffic study back in the budget this time. I'd like to personally push for that. I think it's important. I think in the meantime, we're finally going to get our minds around the Placer AI data to be able to supplement that with some reports that say, based on that, here's kind of what we're seeing, and here's how a traffic study could dovetail with that, and how actually the Placer AI data itself could supplement that effort. I think we should do that. And then just with regard to the two projects, the beach and Weed Beach and Pear Tree Point, to the extent anybody's got lingering concerns over that, we did try to package a presentation to answer those questions, but certainly with the RTM, if you've got individuals that you know are on the fence about this, or maybe could benefit from some additional explanation, I will be happy to sit down personally, one-on-one, with literally anybody, and I will make time to do that. Lunch, in-person meeting, phone call, whatever that is, to help explain why this is okay. I know Laurie is more than available to do the same thing. We really believe this is the right answer for that park. But as I've said, even with Great Island, it's impossible to get a strategy that's going to be supported 100% by 100% of the people. It's a law of physics. You just can't do it. And so our strategy should be something that works for most people most of the time. And this investment for the short lane property exactly does that. It's a good balance between development, preserving nature, restoring and bringing a park to life that's been sitting dormant, while making sure that we take care and provide good stewardship for the nature that's there. It's a good solution for that. And to the extent anybody is not yet convinced, I'd like to spend time with them personally to explain why.
How about
It's
the
a
6
good-
people that voted against it on the FME? Yeah, they were the little TLC.
They're on my list. I will take them to lunch to explain all this. And I also don't want to denigrate people for offering, say, an opposing view for something like that or voting against that. I applaud that. I get that all the time, every day. I got it right before this meeting. That said, all I would ask is allow us
To answer questions.
to sit down and sit down and visit with you and give you the time that you need to make your point made clear, but also give us the time to make our points clear. And I think, at the risk of modesty, I think ours will prevail. This is a good plan. We didn't just think of this yesterday. It's a good plan. Okay.
Okay. But it is interesting, the priorities, you're right, they've kind of been there year after year, so ideally, we get Weed and Pear Tree taken care of, and we have really nice looking parks, and then we can stop talking about the same things and really say, okay, how else can we enhance the parks? And I think, going through the master plan, and I pick it up from time to time and looking stuff up, I think there's a lot of things in there that might not necessarily be extraordinarily expensive, that could be nice, nice enhancements to think about. But it would be nice to be able to put those conversations behind us, so. Okay. Anything else? Okay, well, we'll be continuing these discussions as we go through the budget process. It's kind of weird that we're only in early September and we're already going into next year's budget when we've barely started sending this year's, but it's a very long cycle. Okay, so let's go on to a very preliminary discussion of fees. And in your packet somewhere. Extra two on it, it's like microscopic. Jen put this forward before she left. Jim, I'm hoping maybe you could add some, more color, but the only fee increases that she is recommending are per participant increase for the youth leagues. As you'll remember, we talked about that quite extensively last year and agreed, I think we were even talking about going up to $25 or something, but we kind of agreed we would step it up over years as opposed to, a big hit. So she is recommending another step there. And then she added film photo permits. We didn't have or don't have an established fee, and apparently we do get these requests from time to time for people to use the parks to film whatever projects. Other than that, she is recommending that we stay flat. I don't know, Jim, if you have any more color on that. We have to think about how we feel about that, whether, how often we want to be increasing them, as opposed to just, trying to make it as cost effective for our residents as possible, as opposed to trying to recoup more of our fees from user fee. And it's sort of that push-pull for do we cover the expenses of maintaining the parks through taxes that are spread
Yeah,
across
as-
or user fees. And John, I don't know if you have a view on that. You could say if the beaches get fixed up, should we, raise it? You could argue that
Well,
either way.
As the commission had this philosophical discussion about things that should be financed through users versus things that should be financed generally through taxpayers. So I raised that because at one level, collecting $50 or $58 for a beach permit, okay. But again, kind of what problem are we trying to solve by putting these fees in place? Are we trying to just say that this particular activity qualifies for a user fee because the usage intensity is such that you can really kind of ring fence the amount of economics the town's having to dedicate in order to support that activity? Okay. Or is it something that really is a nice feature to have in the town that really everyone wants to point to and say, yep, the town offers that. So one example that's come up is the boat club, right? So one question would be, how much should the boat club be contributing to the dredging costs around the boat club down by Pear Tree Point? Okay, at one level you could say, well, it's the boat club and they should pay for all of it. Well, no. Because the reality is maintaining Darien as a coastal community with access to boating actually benefits everyone in terms of property values and the overall town. So that's a good example where you kind of want to have this debate about, okay, do we need to target the users or do we need to just make this a general taxpayer expense? Because the reality is every single thing on this list will happen whether we're going to charge fees or not. There are going to be beach stickers, there's going to be Little League, there's going to be tennis, all that's going to happen. Question is do we want to charge for that? And so I think and I think Jen was going to kind of help us with this based on her Westport experience,
Yes.
which is how did they achieve that right balance? Because I think if you could articulate a philosophy that says this is how we think about it, and this is how we assess each asset in our park system to determine not just where it fits on that spectrum, but sort of what the usage intensity is. I think that's actually probably a good way to say it, which is if the usage activity means that you can really identify significant economics that we're having to spend in order to empower that particular thing, and it's for a very discrete group of people, okay, that probably merits a fee. Another reason to do it is that you want to regulate usage, right? So fees at peak time to maybe, to your point, spreading out activity over parks so it's not concentrated and creating traffic problems. So fees are used to govern behavior, if nothing else. And so trying to think about that in the context of this rather than just saying, oh, well, here's a percentage increase this year that makes sense. I think I'd recommend that maybe the commission take a look at that over the course of this year so that maybe next year you've got a governing philosophy to anchor these kinds of decisions against.
Yeah, and we did start to have those discussions
last
last year when
year we
we
did.
put the money in for the software and the consultant would help us, and Jen said that, you develop and you can really say, okay, what's it really cost to run Weed Beach, whatever. But then tied with that was developing this philosophy of general tax burden versus user fee, and developing that philosophy. We weren't able to secure the funding for the software, but you can still somewhat think about the philosophy.
I think this is intellectually interesting. I'd be willing to join in on an effort like this. And we can also drop a dime and call a number of towns. I think actually we might be able to figure a lot of this out ourselves and not have to have a consultant. I'd be willing to jump in on this because it has town-wide implications as well. So I'd be interested in just thinking about that so we have a sharp point of view on it. So if somebody wants to,
Because if
somebody,
people who would
I'm
like to,
I'm happy to sign up if anybody wants to spend some time.
spearhead that, and start putting some thought around that, how we might, tackle that, think of that would be.
If anybody wants to do that,
I would.
sign me up. I'll do it.
Okay.
I'd participate in that.
Okay.
And I think we talked about this, but like things like the fee going up on
Yeah, what
youth
was it?
leagues.
What was it?
We talked about that, but the big,
Say again?
as it relates to youth fees, youth sports fees,
youth,
which is almost,
Right,
which is, our biggest customer by far is
Yep.
Little League.
right. And soccer apparently is actually quite large. Isn't soccer really big? Yeah, soccer's quite big.
What do they do? Town Hall and Baker and yeah, you're right. They're both pretty big. Soccer is the one that they've got a little bit of competition. Like if they wanted to move kids on the Board of Ed fields, they could do that. Baseball, where they can't. But in any case, as somebody who's responsible for this for years, baseball, the Little League knows this is coming, right? They had enough
Yeah.
time, because
We had them here.
but my point is, this $10, they know that, I know they were here, but they know this is coming, because the only reason I say that is, like, $10 per participant doesn't seem very much. There's 800, 1,000 kids in Little League, so that's like $10,000.
Yeah, I talked with John about
Yeah.
it while he was
Okay.
here.
Yeah.
That day, we voted on this, and it was actually higher. I believe the initial was $20. We cut it down to 10 to
Got
make
it.
it a more incremental, easier.
But the big thing is they know it's coming, so they built it into their fees.
The president, Darren
Good.
Little League.
Perfect. Great.
I believe that's correct, but certainly we can re-verify that with Jen.
And that's.
As long as they know it's coming,
Yes.
then they're
It's not
fine.
effective to next fall, so they should have.
Perfect.
The other discussion about
Well,
fees
it's
was-
$10, yeah.
I think you
Yeah.
wanted was it the police
It's
or
the spring
the
of
teachers
26.
to be able to go to the beaches. And we had a fee discussion.
There was a lot.
There was a lot there.
Yeah,
Yeah.
About the fees.
yeah. I don't want to necessarily open up that box again.
Okay.
But
All right. I just remember there's discussion around that.
I think there could be a lot more discussion. Just
Right.
at the time it was tabled, and that didn't really come up.
Okay.
But I think the discussion we decided on was to stair step the youth fees and not jump so high and increase it by $5 per, yeah.
Right, because part of the
Yeah.
concern was families that have kids, you don't want to keep kids from playing multiple sports. So if you're playing Little League, full Little League, you want to also be able to play soccer. And you don't want families that have 4 kids now be burdened with all of these fees. You know, that kid can't play soccer because it's got, family can't afford to do that anymore. So you want to keep the fees, I think, at a level that is reasonable. And the tiered was the solution that we came up with.
All right, is there somebody else who would like to, or be willing to help work with Terry on this in terms of, starting from out? Ed? Great, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, that's a great. You have nothing else to do.
Yeah. With all your free
Nothing
time.
else to do.
But this is, I think it's interesting. It could
Yeah.
really help the town generally to have a sharp and clear point of view on that. I'll give you guys a call.
And how to think about that, that balance. Because a lot of the parts of it feel like they're going to put fabric of the community, what brings people here that, think about okay, so my kids are grown and don't live in town anymore, but do I benefit as a resident by living in a community
That's
where we have
precisely the question.
where we have a robust youth program because, it brings family in and
That's
new
precisely the
blood
question.
and presumably helps keep your house value up if you're going to sell your house, which I always say I'm never going to do. But, it's that balance, and how do you think about that? And it's an interesting intellectual exercise to go through. And I know Jen did go through it in Westport, and they were able to bucket different types of services. And Westport, I think, has more extensive services than we do. The one I remember that she brought up is, they have a marina. Well, we sort of do too. And if I remember what she said correctly, the cost to rent a boat slip fully covered what they were able to determine was the cost of delivering the boat slip. They felt that you're getting a boat slip for your exclusive use, you need to cover all of the costs, and that was the example she gave.
Like that. So we discussed with you. Okay.
It's just my understanding from what Jen described, it's almost like this, it was a consultant, but it was also like a sensitivity model. So you could input different price points and volumes and determine if you were breaking even or maybe
Right.
if there was any cost shifting.
Yeah, but
So
we
I
don't
think
have that.
to a certain degree, calling around and finding out what other towns are doing is fine, but to have a model that's sustainable, a few years from now that you can have some wiggle room with, I think would be valuable as
It's a good
well.
point. I'm hoping we'll find a town that's using that so they can tell us whether it's been valuable for them.
Well, I
it is,
think
we should do that.
Westport used it,
Did they
right?
use it?
Is
Yeah,
that-
no, she had it in
Yeah,
Westport.
she had it in
Right.
Westport, yeah.
I got questions. But
Yeah.
it's a good point, though.
To John's point, I think, I don't know, my own thought is we could do a little doodle poll pretty quickly and kind of find our 10 viewpoints on how we feel philosophically about some of these questions. I'm thinking we just put a few questions together and then that sort of informs, I don't know how you think.
I don't know how I think about it.
But I know how I think.
Yeah.
I have had this discussion
Yeah.
about philosophically how it should be, but framing it in this, I don't know, I think we could come up with some good questions and just,
Let's give it a go.
yeah.
Yeah, let's give it a go. Okay.
What's next?
I think it'd actually be fun to talk about stuff like that instead of talking about the same old projects for 10 years. Just saying. Okay, I think.
Are we voting on anything?
No, this was a preliminary discussion.
Okay.
Again, for some reason, from whenever, we were in the cycle of voting on the fees in like January, and we're
Yeah.
so far into the budget process, this is another one that Jen asked us to just bring forward
Okay.
and start. But, you know, we're gonna have, ideally, you wanna have the revenue side voted on when you're voting on the rest of the budget. So she wanted us to at least start having these kinds of conversations about it. So that would be good. Next, we have director's report. Are you gonna run us through that?
Yeah, I mean, if everybody get a chance to look through the report, I'm not going to regurgitate
Yeah.
exactly what Jen has here in her report. The projects you guys have been talking about quite a bit with Weed Beach and Pear Tree. I included some information on our summer registration, which was a little bit down compared to last year. I think there's a few factors. I think the weather was a big one. And you would just talk about how our fall registration is. We had a very good beach season. This is the third year in the last 25 that I can remember that we've been able to staff the beaches all the way through to Labor Day with lifeguards. So that was a very successful season. We do a lot of trainings with the lifeguards. We do a training with Post 53 in conjunction with Post 53 in the middle of the season. We do some trainings with the YMCA. We bring in an instructor that also works with them, so they're not listening to me all the time. And this year we had a lifeguard Olympics against Stanford, so we've done some good trainings with the guards.
How'd we do?
We won't talk about it. Let's put it, all of the lifeguard related activities and events and first aid related, we did very well. But, you know, when it came to the tug of war, not so much. And we did a couple of fun events with them as well.
Yeah, we gotta work on that.
Yeah, we have to work on that. But it was a good event. It gave them an opportunity to kind of see how, you know, another facility was operated. And we had a good group of guards. But we do quite a few trainings with those guards. Right now I'm involved with the paddle tennis, getting that up and ready. We had about 50 applications for block time, so people who want to reserve a court for the entire season. And I think out of those 50, everybody got at least their first, second, or third choice, with most people getting their first. So that's what I'm going to be working on tomorrow. So that will start up October 13th, Columbus Day. We talked about a little bit about the pickleball, the pickleball role on Court 1. I think we had about it was around 10 or 15 reservations each month in August and September. So it is getting a lot of use. I think we probably should do some kind of a survey to those users to see what they thought of it after the fact. We're going to use that again next year and possibly even expand it. We have a breakdown of summer registration, beach permits, sales.
I'm sorry, Joe.
Oh, sorry.
Just going back to the pickleball.
Yeah.
I think a survey is a really good idea. And maybe sooner rather than later, so it's fresh in people's mind.
Yeah, I think
You mean
so.
specific to people who rented it? Yeah. Jim, you actually got a letter from a woman today that you forwarded to me, and she was quite favorable.
Oh, yeah.
About
it. She's one of the neighbors down here. She was using the courts when they were paddle courts prior to us putting down the pickleball product. But so she was very pleased, happy with the way the court works. But the same issues that we know already exist, and that's where it's coming up into seams. You know, so I told her we were addressing that. But overall, she said she was happy. People she played with are happy. They liked the fencing. You know, we had a couple of people who said they didn't like it because they ran into it. She said they do like it. They like having the fence around the ball. That doesn't allow bounce. So overall, her comments were really good. I sent out a couple of other emails to people I know. I've been using the court and waiting to hear back from them as well.
Okay.
The feedback, I'll share it with you. And yeah, overall very good. Now, of course, we have to decide next year if we want to go for a second one. One of the things that she commented about was a way to get around the tiling was to do two pieces. In other words, split it down the middle. You roll out one side and then roll the other. That way you only have one seam down the middle. I don't know if pickleball
I don't think
offers
they
that.
make that, right?
So we
I
have to
thought
find
they
out.
did. I thought that was one of the options.
Yeah, I thought they had one big one. but I wasn't sure if had two. But anyway, we could look into that, you know, if we're gonna go and purchase another one. The other comment she did make is that she found a lot of kids, she said, younger folks, she said, were using the paddle courts for pickleball.
Anyway.
So, when they were empty, anyway. Yeah, so pickleball courts being used by them, two other courts were being used by kids to play pickleball, even though it was paddle
Set up for
service.
paddle.
So there is a need, obviously, and I think it's caught on that we now have a court down here, so that's all good.
I mean, hopefully, we can get the better tape. My instinct tells me that because we put it down that really, really hot week in July, and I know Sandy and the crew, I think we're out here like 4:30 in the morning to avoid that. My gut just tells me there's something that the heat might have built up, and then there was shifting, or it affected the adhesive or something. So I'm hoping that's something that's resolvable, because Sandy and Jen did, as they said, went down to Innis Arden and looked at those, and they actually used a different adhesive product, and they were like, we're not having the problem that you're having, so hopefully it is.
I feel confident Jen's going to be able to fix it
Yep.
based on the feedback she got from the clubs of Greenwich and from here.
So it's being used, which is good. There's a comparison about with registration from last year to this year, beach permit sales from last year to this year. We had a very challenging start to the summer, as you know, with the weather. So I think we saw a little bit of a decrease on the number of permits sold, but since there was an increase in the fee, we did see a little bit more revenue coming in for that. We did manage the Youth Commission summer camps this summer. We had 372 children in that, and Janice Marzano, I would like to thank her because she was a huge key to that camp, running pretty well. So it was a challenging summer, that's for sure, but Janice did a great job.
She runs it, doesn't she? Or
She
did.
used to be.
She used
yeah,
to. She's kind of a legend in town.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's done a lot for a
For
lot.
our kids in town,
Yeah,
she's.
she really is.
A couple of
One of
special.
our heroes.
She is. I mean, she really is. Luau, we had approximately 600 or 700 people there on the 22nd. Feedback, Cassie did send out a survey. The feedback was very positive. I think, John, you were there.
I was there, I did the tug of war, it was a ton of fun, everybody had a great time, it was well organized, Cassie did a nice job.
Good. We could
600 to 700, that sounds like a lot of people.
There were a ton of people there.
Yeah,
Kids, played just a crazy number of kids, it was great.
that's great.
Yeah.
Congratulations.
Love that.
We did have this past Sunday, the pickleball tournament up at Cherry Lawn. The next event, we have there's a movie night coming up at Highland, and a Halloween pup parade and costume contest at Tilly on October 19th.
I'm sorry, where's the movie night?
I think it's a Highland.
Highland.
Yes.
Okay.
Is it a good movie?
It's
kids' movie.
How to Train Your Dragon. It's the new
The
version.
new one, no?
Yes.
I haven't seen that.
It got very good reviews.
Okay.
Jim, quick question. Why are the first 10 minutes of registration so important? I've seen that before. It says first 10 minutes of following winter registration revenue.
Is very heavy.
Because I have to be on at 10 o'clock
To get
to get the tennis one that I want.
I think it's an indication of the demand for some of our programs, that people are literally, and I've done it myself, sitting at their computer, logged on, credit card information there, and just the minute, and it literally, it's almost like a countdown. You're like, you know, and you're in there trying to get it. So I think it just shows how much demand for a lot of these programs there are.
Okay.
Yeah, it's knock on wood, this software seems to be able to catch up with it and stay up with it. So it's but Ed's right, the demand is there for a few of the programs for sure.
What do you think about dynamic pricing for
No comment.
Eyes bitter.
I love it.
And Sandy mentioned a few things on the facility. The guys are they're busy on the weekends with baseball season and getting the fields groomed and ready for Little League. They'll be starting in the next couple of months with keeping up all the leaves in the parks, and they did a lot of work getting the fields ready for for the spring by doing aerating and seeding and things like that in late August. So they've been doing a lot of work on the fields and put in there's some mats that were installed at Wheat Beach and Pear Tree for wheelchair and accessibility down to the shore. So they would put those in as well. They do a really good job. They've been very busy, and that's pretty much some of the highlights from their report. If there's anything that you have a question about, feel free to ask.
Chris, who gets to judge the dog contest? All right, I was gonna say I'm not raising my hand.
I'm ready.
No.
Okay.
I think it's a select group of VIPs.
I still, yeah. Good luck.
Yeah. So I believe there's 5 judges. I don't want.
Any other questions for Jim? Yeah. I was on the phone with Sandy on a matter this morning, and I did extend certainly my personal appreciation of the commission about the great work that he and his team do in maintaining the park. And they really work hard, and they put in long days. And I just, I've told him before, but I like to tell him again how much we appreciate their
Municipal
efforts.
saints.
They are, and they pitch in with like P&Z and other places as needed. They chip in as well, so they really, and he's so dedicated, and really, you can just tell he takes the appearance of the parks and everything, he takes it really, really, really personally, so I think that's super. Okay, that's it? Questions for Jim? Okay, I will give my report, and then we can call it a night. We had, to the right page, we had OPC yesterday. I'm only going to touch on things that are really specific to, or kind of relative to the commission or our activities, and then you can certainly watch the whole video if you want to get a broader overview of town. John mentioned about the sidewalks program, which may or may not impact, access to various parks as the consultants come in and the selectmen work with them on determining, how and where the community should prioritize putting in sidewalks. Tracy Mara talked about the state legislature will be going back into session, mostly budget related, but she mentioned that the housing bill may be coming back. John's been very involved in that. Just something for all of us to keep an eye and think about, because any changes to the housing requirements of town, again, would trickle down ultimately, and this is longer term, about the demand of our public facilities, including our parks. So just something to think and be aware of. She also mentioned, I meant to print out, I haven't done it, there's new state legislation over scooters and electric bikes, and who can ride them, when they can be on the streets, et cetera, what's considered really a motor vehicle that has to be licensed, et cetera. And on her website, she's got a graphic that describes it. I asked about them being ridden in the park. She said, the same rules would apply on our paved area, but only what are considered class 1 bikes would be allowed, to the extent we allow them anyway, on our trails. So again, we should probably understand that information more when we're looking at the rules. Think about whether we want to, whether it just says no bikes or class 1, maybe think about that a little bit tighter, because people do like to, take those bikes and kind of trail ride with them. And I will admit, I was upstate Connecticut this weekend, and we were taken on a guided bike tour and, did trails through state parks. I'm assuming it was allowed, but I just went with the guide. Who knows? Let's see. Jeremy just gave an update on the plan of conservation and development. There was a meeting on September 4th. I was not able to attend, but the video's there. I do want to watch that, and I think it would be worth all of us watching again, because that plan of conservation and development, again, will feed into and be information about how people are feeling about our parks and our open spaces. So I would ask that you all watch that, and I will do that. He also mentioned that the construction of 3 parklands, which abut Selleck's Woods, is underway. So the building is down. I will say I've not been over there. And the new developer, because the gentleman that we had worked with passed away and the property was sold, came back with some changes to where the ultimate parking will be located. Jen did take a look at that, and she said the new proposal was actually better. I guess the way it was going to be the parking to access Southern was going to be all the way into Ensa Parkland Drive. It's going to end up being closer to where it is now, with better access and better sighting of the handicap spaces. So Jen apparently signed off on it and said that the changes were fine because P&Z had to approve those requests. For now, through 2027, there is a temporary entrance to the park, which I think there was a comment there, but it's not easily, noticeable. So Jeremy's recommendation is people can access the park from, what's the name of the street?
Little Brook.
Thank you. Over there, so kind of temporarily the access to Selleck's Woods is not temporarily for 2 years, but ultimately Jen felt that the layout will be better for us. So those were the highlights of POCD. That's our stuff. Okay. Update on Great Island. The master plan was completed and accepted by the Board of Selectmen. The Great Island Advisory Committee has been disbanded officially, so I'm free from that. We met every other Wednesday this summer for the last 2 or 3 months, so it was a pretty active schedule. Adirondack chairs were ordered. Those are in and on property, so they've been sited. So people, if you're over there actually are some places to sit. We're still expecting both benches and some tables and chairs.
Those are nice.
That those will be in this fall. And then the selectmen are also seeking funding for, more design work. So that will also be on the agenda for the different meetings that we're also going for funding for the next few weeks. Coastal Commission hasn't met in a while, but they'll be meeting tomorrow night, and I will be attending that meeting. We've touched on the weed and pear tree updates. I think you all know we talked about that the selectmen did approve the bonding request 5-0. So thank you very much, selectmen. Both requests were approved by the RTM Finance and Budget Committee on Tuesday night. The pear tree vote was 13-1 unopposed, and the weed was 8-6. So it was tighter. There was quite a bit of discussion on that. Feel free to go watch it back. Some folks indicated they still had unanswered questions, so we did ask Jack Davis to please, circle back to us so that we can address those unanswered questions, because I think that's what John was alluding to, was, fine for people to form their opinion in the end, but if they're voting because they feel they don't know information, that's what we would like to avoid. The Board of Finance will be meeting and voting on these next Tuesday. The meeting was supposed to be last night. They decided to postpone it for a week at 7:30, room 206. It would be really, really terrific to have members of this commission there. It looks much better if there's other members other than just me, frankly, that we have the commission support behind it. So that's the next meeting, and then the next night, the 24th, the Parks and Rec RTM committee, which Susan serves on, Patty is vice chair, Adele Conniff is chair, will be discussing our projects and also voting on whether to support the funding request. To clarify, we're not asking for approval for the projects. The projects are fully approved. We're asking for the money to do them. And then the final vote will be
So, Lloyd, can you repeat the time for the Board of Finance meeting?
7:30,
7:30 on next Tuesday.
the 23rd, yes.
And Adele's meeting, just to confirm that is,
The 24th, I believe also at 7:30. I think they meet by Zoom, but I don't know that for sure. Do you know, Susan?
Yeah, we'll be in the auditorium.
Auditorium.
7:30 on the 24th in the auditorium. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And then the full RTM will be voting on Monday, the 29th, and that I'm sure will be in the auditorium. And they meet at 7 now?
No,
7:30. Oh, that's right, it used to be 8, now it's 7:30. So again, I would really ask that any and all of you who can attend those meetings do so. Okay, and then the ADA report we talked about, and that is all I had.
I have a quick question. What is the timing on completing the road into Great Island where they're widening it?
The construction work on the road should be done by December.
Okay.
The landscaping, which replaces trees that were taken out, all of that, that's not going to be finished until the spring when it's more appropriate for planting. So all of it wrapped up by, call it June 1st latest.
Okay, I was just curious. Thank you.
That's it. So, busy another 10 days or so.
Only 10?
Well, no, I mean, just in terms of, to hopefully bring these two funding requests to the finish line. Pending positive outcome on both, construction would start shortly after November 1st, which would be really exciting, and be done by the end of May in both properties. So we would be delivering two, nicely renovated parks to our community for the next summer season. Again, pending positive approval, the selectmen will be forming a building committee. John, your thinking is to have one building committee for both projects?
Yeah, it's the same company doing both projects, as you know, so.
And Weston Sampson would be hired to be the
Same company.
construction oversight, so that seems to make sense. So that will be formed. So actually, the actual guiding the work through actually will be handled by a building committee, not this commission. There'll be just a special purpose entity which will start that job, go through it, and then they'll be disbanded once everything's done. So that's it. So those are the next steps on those two projects. So be sure to keep everybody posted. And that's it. Anything else for this evening?
Yeah, if you have friends on the RTM or the Board of Finance that could use more information about these great projects, check in with them. Say, are you clear about all that? Is there something I can help you with? You've all got networks of people that you know that sit on those two important groups. So please do that. Susan, well, you know everybody, so anyway.
Thank you. All right, can I get a motion to adjourn? I guess that was Janet. Okay. Second, Terry, all in favor? Okay, we're good, thank you.